Hi, folks. I'm Larry Taylor. I'm a life coach specializing in seeking to come alongside of people as they extract themselves from a condition of being spiritually stuck and then in freedom and in joy and with enthusiasm moving on into the journey that we call life. If you're just joining me, I'd suggest that you go back and start at the beginning where I frame all of this in terms of a metaphor. And now I'm in the process of giving some examples by way of scenarios. And these scenarios are all fictitious names, and they are composite scenarios. What I mean by that is that these characters that I am presenting are all people, are all combinations of people that I have known or interacted with or been connected with somehow. So the situations they're going through are real situations that real people go through, and the solutions are real solutions that real people implement. But the details of the scenario can't be attached to any one particular person. In this scenario, I have a couple. Her name is Catherine, and his name is Chuck. And they are very traditional people, middle-aged people, raised in a traditional middle-class home, family. This particular couple happens to be African-American. That's not super significant to the scenario because this is true and people of all different ethnicities wind up here, but pardon me, I mention that because these folks grew up in a Black Baptist church, very conservative in theology, very engaged in social justice and concerned about issues like racism and poverty and so forth. But when it comes to marriage, very, very traditional. What has been taught to them since they were little children, taught by their parents, taught by their peers, and strongly taught from the pulpits of their churches, is that homosexuality is a sin, it's an abomination, and that one cannot be a practicing homosexual and be rightly related to God. And scriptures, of course, have been quoted to support that. Along with that, also from their homes and churches, they have been taught that marriage is a sacred union between a male and a female, a man and a woman, one man married to one woman for life. And they have been taught that that's God's plan, and that anything that deviates from that plan is wrong and it is sinful. In addition, they have been taught that the traditional family, husband, wife, children, is the primary building block of society, and that if that building block were to crumble or be knocked out, all of society would collapse. So it's not an issue that they think about all the time in their hearts and minds. It's just a settled issue. It's a fact. They never give it much thought. Then, as time goes by, some stuff begins to happen. First of all, they meet some people who are homosexual. They meet some gay people. They meet some lesbians. They meet some gays and lesbians who are living in committed relationships. And then the Supreme Court allows for same-sex marriage, and now they know, not a lot, because that's not the circles they travel in, but they know of some married lesbian couples and some married gay couples. And as they observe these couples, perhaps their neighbors, they see that they are really good spouses. They care for each other. And children come into those families, and they notice that they are really good parents, and that the children seem to be doing very, very well. And that runs contrary to what they've been taught. They've been taught that children would be all messed up if they were raised in that kind of a situation. So these awareness of these folks, knowing these people, meeting these people, say at work or in the neighborhood, begins to cause some spiritual dissonance. These seem like really nice people, really good people. And yet, according to their theology, these are horrible sinners who are going to spend eternity being tortured in flames of fire. And as they think about that, they think, wait a minute, I thought God was a God of love, and tortured in flames of fire forever for what? For loving each other? For being good parents? Something wasn't quite right. Didn't make sense. And then a friend's daughter came out as gay. And they watched the struggle that the friend's family went through, and they felt really badly for the young woman because her parents couldn't accept her, told her she was going to hell, told her that she was no longer their daughter, and kicked her out of the house. And that hurt them very deeply. On the one hand, they understood why the parents would do that. I mean, that's kind of what they had all been taught at church and the way they were raised and all, but my goodness, this is their daughter. And now this teenage girl is out on the streets and not only lonely, but vulnerable to all the bad things that can happen. So that became a struggle. And then everything blew up when their son came home from college and sat down with them and announced that he was gay, and that he had always known that he was gay, and that he had been living a false life, living in the closet, as it were, until this time. And it was clear that the son was bracing himself to be rejected. His mama could not reject him. She burst into tears and threw her arms around him and said, essentially, I don't understand, but I love you and I will always love you. Dad had a harder struggle accepting. At first, he just became very quiet and walked out of the room, mulling it over. But after a day or two, he went to his son and hugged him and embraced him and said, "You're my son and I love you and nothing is ever going to change that." And I accept you just the way you are. It still left them, though, spiritually stuck, because now you've got my child and my relationship with my child and my friends and neighbors and coworkers who are in this LGBTQ category and seem to be doing okay. You've got that on the one hand, but you've still got the background and the theology and the teaching with which I was raised. So, spiritual stuckness results. What are they to do? They begin searching, they begin reading, they begin talking to other people, they go to various group meetings, they listen to stories of other parents, books are recommended to them, they read the books, and eventually they get to the place where they can sit down with open minds and rethink their theology, and they discover as they do that there are only 7 instances in the Bible where homosexuality is possibly even mentioned, and some of those it really doesn't seem to be talking about homosexuality, at least not in committed lifelong relationships. And they dig in more and more and more, and they realize that there are good, solid, Bible-believing, love Jesus Christians on both sides of this issue. And that it's not as black and white, as clear as they once thought it was. And that the English translations don't necessarily reflect the full breadth of what the original languages have said. And they talk to other clergy people from slightly different traditions and continue to pursue it. And the result eventually is that they get out of the mud. And they're able to knock the mud off, and they are able to fully embrace and love not just their son, but anyone who is LGBTQ. They're able to accept them as they are and to love them as they are and to believe that God loves them as they are. And there's still things within them that they don't really understand because they're not gay people. They're very straight people when it comes to sexuality. So it's not that they fully understand, but they do fully love. They're free to love. And so they have gotten out of the mud. They've knocked the mud off their boots. They're traveling down the path of life with a new sense of lightness and freedom. And perhaps they're even able to join with a group of people that helps other people like them. Not by telling them this side's right and that side's wrong, but simply by meeting them where they are and letting them know it's okay. We love you. God loves you. God loves your son or daughter. We love your son or daughter or non-binary human. And we accept you and we accept your family just the way it is. A lot we haven't figured out, maybe, but that's okay. Because it's all about love. See you next time.